Hey everyone, and welcome back to the devlog for Dharion. This is probably the most important video so far, because today I am starting to talk about the combat system. And this is only part 1, the foundation. I want to be honest right from the start. This was one of the hardest systems I've ever tried to build. Ren'Py was never designed for a combat system, especially not for something that looks like 3D combat. At its core, Ren'Py is just showing images on a screen. Those images don't really exist in space, they don't interact with each other. Everything you see is basically an illusion. At first I planned to do something very simple. Just show the main characters and the enemy on the screen, add a couple of buttons like attack and defend, and let the player guess what the opponent is going to do. No movement, no animation, just static images like in many classic visual novels. Technically that would have worked, but visually it fell wrong. I am making a game inspired by Gothic. Even if it's a very minimal, stripped down version of it, I still wanted combat to feel physical. I didn't need Unreal Engine quality. I didn't need Unity level systems, but I did want the player to feel like they're actually controlling a character and interacting with the opponent, not just clicking button on a menu. So the goal was clear. Now I had to figure out how to actually make it work. I follow one simple rule when I build a system like this. I write down exactly what I want to achieve. Then I implement everything step by step, starting from the absolute minimum. And I test everything single step. The first thing I did was very basic. I just play the player and the enemy, in this case an orc, on the screen facing each other. That's it. No logic, no combat, just visuals. Then I added health and stamina bars for both characters at the top of the screen, along with the variables to control them. Health goes down when you take damage. Stamina works the same way, but it regenerates over time. At the bottom, I added 2 buttons, attack and defend. At this point, they didn't do anything, they were just there visually. I looked at the results, and it was obvious what was missing: animation. The scenes feel completely dead. Using full video files for animation wasn't a good option. I need full control over when exactly something happened, when the attack lands, when damage is applied, when a character reacts. So the only real solution was frame-by-frame animation. Normally, a proper idle animation would easily use 60 frames or more. Attack and defense animation even more. Rendering and storing that many images would have been way too expensive, both in time and in memory. So I made a decision: keep it extremely minimal. Idle animation for each character's use just 5 frames. That's it. 5 images for the player, 5 images for the orc. And suddenly the scenes came alive. It looks like something is happening in 3D space, even though it's just a visual trick. Next step, interaction. The player had to react to the press and attack and defend button. And this is where frame-based animation really paid off. Because the idle animation can be interrupted at any frame and replaced with an attack or defense animation. For the attack, I started with the 7 frames. Then I decided to add variations and created 3 different attack animations. Later, this opens the door for progression, better training, more experience, more attack patterns. Defense was simpler. 3 frames were enough. Now I had to connect all these to the buttons and make sure that triggering an action pauses the idle animation correctly. Once that was done, I tested it. And for the first time, the character actually responded to my input. That was the moment I knew the direction was right. Next challenge, damage. When the player attacks, the orc shouldn't just play an animation. He needs to actually get hurt. I wanted the player character to move forward slightly during the attack, so it visually feels like the sword is reaching the enemy. When the sword reaches a certain point, the orc plays a hit animation and his health decreases. To do that, I created a very simple damage animation for the orc and triggered it in a specific moment during the player's attack animation. Since the orc doesn't think yet, he just follows our instructions. This part was relatively straightforward. I also added a weapon damage variable, so the system knows how much damage the attack should deal. Later, this will be tied to different weapons. The results looks like this. The player attacks, the orc reacts, health goes down, and boss character returns to idle. Now it was time to make things more interesting. The orc shouldn't just stand there and take hits, so I added defense behavior for the orc. When the player attacks, the orc can either block the attack or take damage. If the orc blocks, no damage is applied. To make this feel less predictable, I didn't script a fixed pattern. Instead, I gave the orc a simple decision system. Most of the time he defends, and only during the small windows he allows damage to go through. The system randomly decides which action to take, based on the percentage chances. There is no fixed number of blocks, no guaranteed opening. The player has to observe, guess, and test the enemy defense. And this is where the combat system really starts to feel alive. This is where part 1 ends. In the next video, I will cover the hardest part of the entire system, bringing the orc fully to life. This means letting the orc attack, reacting to those attacks as a player, handling victory and death stages, using health and stamina potion during the combat. That's where everything really comes together. See you in the next devlog.